Welcome to the Ethics Experts, where we're elevating ethics and compliance and HR to the strategic level it's supposed to be.
Hey everybody, this is the Ethics Experts. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. And if you are a returning subscriber, hello bestie. Hope you're having an amazing day. You look amazing. See what happens when you subscribe to the Ethics Experts. You get that bonus greeting on every single episode. So hit that subscribe button. I am here with my man, Willian. How are you, Will?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Do you go by Will or Willian?
Will.
Will, all right, perfect. So now that that's out of the way, pretty excited to get you on, man. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, what your role in the world is, and what kind of impact you've been making.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm William. I'm a compliance officer. I work on this field, about 7 years in this field, and I'm really passionate about compliance since the first I met it. I'm currently a lawyer, so I also certificated in compliance by SCCE, and I have passed for some companies deploying compliance departments and as well data protection governance in the company that I have worked for.
Well, that's a pretty exciting area, data governance, privacy, things like that. Before we dive deep into that, tell me a little bit about what made you want to be a lawyer and what it is about compliance that you love so much.
Yeah, sure. I confess that I met compliance, not that it was not what I'm looking for at the time. I was too young, and compliance, it was not on my list. And that's funny that because I usually say that compliance picked me up. I was looking for a job in the first year of law school, and then I got this opportunity to have a job interview for a compliance department, and then my first opportunity, I started in compliance, and then I started love it. And since then, I passed through other companies. So that's how I looked for compliance, and I went specializing more and more, doing more courses and knowing more about the marketing, and especially in Brazil, because I am from São Paulo. I'm talking from São Paulo, Brazil, and I have contact with countries in Latin, which is known as high risk of corruption countries. So I encountered here a really great challenges to deploy all the compliance departments that I have the opportunity to work for. So this is a great opportunity for me and gave me a great background to do and start and continuing as a compliance officer.
What is it like doing compliance, learning compliance in a high-risk country?
Yeah, it's always a challenge because all the pillars in compliance are really tough. I would say that due diligence, for example, is one of them. We have to know which companies we are working for, and in Brazil or another countries. And down here, we need to focus and do a great research to be in compliance with the law and to have a great analysis to avoid any mistake and to avoid to have bad vendors working with you, or even in M&A. So when you are acquiring a company, working with merger and acquisitions, it's a duty of compliance to know what we are looking for. And looking for these high-risk countries, we can observe that we have several issues. Corruption on the public services, so we have humanitarian, so we have to look if that companies respects labor or human rights. Mm-hmm. It's a complete, as I would say, due diligence process. And this reflects in all the pillars. We need to train our people, as I would say. This is an important task, even in compliance, because we need to remember our people, our employees, to do the right thing on a daily basis, even if we are facing a difficult situation. So as a compliance officer, to work with people, if I consider a great value for us, we need to remind them on a daily basis to do the right thing.
So let me ask you this. Do you think working in a high-risk country it's harder to do compliance or it's easier to do compliance? And let me give you an example. If you're cleaning a dirty garage it's pretty easy to have a big impact very quickly, right? If you're cleaning a hermetically sealed room that's already super clean, right? Like a place where they make, microchips or something, it's really hard to make a noticeable impact. So in that kind of a framework, and maybe it's hard to answer because you've only ever lived in your own body, you've only ever worked in your own country and so forth, but do you think it's easier or harder to do compliance in a high-risk country?
Yeah, in one side, we have what you said, that we can create and we can have a big impact. So we can have fast results when we are facing a high-risk country. However, we've been facing difficulties regarding that. We have to work with people and we have to be aligned with several legislations. We are pushed very hard to have better standards than anyone. And this is common from the companies that I have worked, because other countries that are not high risk do not have the same obligations that sometimes we have in Brazil. This also, for example, reflects on the risk assessment. We are pushed very hard on that when we are analyzing the likelihood of something bad happening in your country. So because of that, we are pushed to have better controls, to have more ongoing audits. So we have more work to do. That's the truth.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting, I don't even know if you could call it a problem. It's just an interesting comparison point. It's like you have to be super healthy because you're in this type of an environment or you're in this type of high-risk country, and it could actually lead to you having better compliance programs because you don't take for granted that it's not a high-risk country. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's an interesting thing. How does that show up in your risk assessments, for example? Let's get very tactical. How does, because you said that you have an SCCE certification. As you were going through that, that's, I know that that's an international organization to some degree and so forth, and they have a great presence in Brazil in particular. But as you were going through that, how did it, did you get a sense of like, okay, well, that really wouldn't work here, or I would have to kind of bolster that and make that stronger here? Or did you get a sense of this is a pretty good, this is a pretty good picture of what any kind of risk assessment should be, regardless of whether it's a high risk or low risk country?
Yeah. No, I believe that the risk assessment must be adapted to each country and also to each company, because it's basically on the risks that the particular industry are facing and also the maturity of the company. So some companies have more experience in compliance or even in auditing or have a better governance, having policies in place, and people are used to have all this, to put all this in practice. So this is my opinion that this will be very, but talk about in practice, what I do, I also analyze all of that, and I talk to the key leaders to understand their vision about the company, to understand the level of maturity, and also to get their perspective on how their likelihood of that risks. And also from the expertise, analyzing what they are telling us from what I can observe knowing the country and analyzing all the controls in place to get what we need to focus. So I believe that this is the function of a risk assessment. They need to show us the real picture of the company and what compliance you need to do on short term, long term. So shall we invest in policies? Shall we invest in training? Should we move to deploy a due diligence program, or even to go to human rights policies, or even in ESG? A great talk that the market has been raising recently, and maybe most of the company do not have this practice in place. So I believe based on that function, we can observe and frequently move our efforts to do that.
So tell me about what's going on with ESG in Brazil. This is a hot topic here. Is it as hot of a topic by you, and where is the general sort of public at with respect to this thing? How important of an initiative is it in companies like yours?
Yeah, sure. Well, this impacts mainly the big companies because they are been pushing very hard from the marketing to adopt better practice that they didn't do before. And I have been following webinars, other companies, my colleagues in other companies, and this has been such a huge topic in everyone's market. So
Everywhere.
everywhere. So most of the companies are showing to the market what they've been doing on all these pillars, because some companies usually to have the E pillar or the S, but what I observed that maybe none of them have all the SG program because
Right.
yeah,
How do you think, let's fast forward, it's 5 or 10 years from now. How do you think ESG has integrated or interacted with compliance, and what role do you think compliance plays in that whole thing?
yeah, compliance plays a really key role in SG, mainly on the governance. However, it also applies to the other pillars, but governance is really close to compliance, mainly for the committees that compliance also supports, that compliance also deploys, and getting the support from the top. So we need to have this type of C-level talking about this matter. So all the governance, all the results and possibility, for example, to have an ethics line channel to report is also a function that compliance also supports. And through this latest time, compliance has been inserted in the governance. However, we also support, for example, I say about the donation and sponsorships with the social program that's several companies do this. So it's also a responsibility from compliance to analyze which are these companies or people, these ONGs that are receiving funds from the company. They are ethical. So compliance also supports to ensure that the company are doing the correct efforts to support all of these pillars. So compliance it's also included in all of this pillars and supports all the social responsibility, the corporate responsibility, the environment department. So we are doing around of these departments through the companies.
Interesting. Let's go back in time a little bit. What were you like as a kid? When you were a young guy growing up in Brazil, what was your childhood like? What was your family like? And, what kind of a student were you? What were you like when you were a young guy?
Yeah, sure. Well, I always studied a lot. I used to like to be a doctor, in fact, since I was a kid. I also have the support of my family about that. And I really like languages. So I studied English since I was a kid because my native is Portuguese. However, I also study Spanish because I really like languages. My next one is French, for example. So
Wow.
I have always been studying a lot about that. However, when I was looking for a career, when I was a teenager, I realized that I was not good at being in a hospital or anything like that. So I totally give up of this type of plan. Situation in that I started a business course. So it was when I know all of this business world and corporate, so and also legal as well, because through this course I've taken some legal matters, and then when I find out that I would like to be a lawyer. At that time, nothing related to compliance. However, and then I started law school and compliance made right away. I started law school, and then my path and my career started all of this time.
So what was it about law? You said, hey, I want to be a doctor. I don't want to be in a hospital. what made you pivot into law? What was it about law that you really liked?
I remember that when I was doing that business administration course, I used to have a class with a lawyer, and then she teached us about some specific points about ethics, about contracts, and about a legal mindset. And that makes my eyes really interesting because I really like it about that, how the mindset of lawyers think about, because it is a huge field. We have so many things to do, many areas. We have tax, we have criminal law, we have so many fields, but the lawyer does not need to know all of that.
Right.
We need to develop this type of thinking to resolve our problems and adapt to the specific case. Of course, if you want to specialize in some specific area, you need to do it.
Right.
However, on a daily basis, we can go and solve our problems and need to know just to know where we need to go to have this information to do on a daily basis. So that's why.
Yeah, you know, they say that when you're a lawyer or law school really teaches you how to think, and it gives you the confidence to be able to figure things out. And so to your point, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know kind of where to look, and you can use your lawyer mind to figure those things out. You said that when you were kind of starting to look for a job, this compliance opportunity popped up. What was that opportunity, and what was it about that opportunity that really resonated with your soul?
Yeah, well, the great thing in that opportunity, it was related to work in a multinational company, an American one, and I always wanted to work in a multinational company, mostly because of this interaction with the headquarters, to put in practice my English. And at that time, they were looking for law students to hold the position of a junior analyst. And then I've applied, although not knowing what about compliance. I was looking for what it's what about, but I applied. No experience were required at that time, and then I started to do at that time. So I was passionate about that. I had a great leader at that time, the head of compliance teachers, so many things for me, and I have a very great opportunities. I travel a lot down the countries in
Where'd you
Latin.
go?
Yeah, I went to go to Peru. I went to go to Paraguay, in Brazil, Argentina. So to know all of these
Wow,
countries,
cool.
yeah.
What a
So
great experience to have at such a young age, right?
yeah.
What did you
This
learn
is
from all
really,
that travel and seeing all those different jurisdictions?
yeah. Thinking about myself, I learned about the maturity. So I was really young about that, and most of these travels I do it by myself.
Wow.
So
Party
I
time,
had to
huh?
do it.
Time to party, huh?
Yeah, I really time to party. Yeah, both work and party.
Yeah. So you're traveling by yourself. You're in your early 20s, probably. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you had to just figure it out in all these different places. What was it you learned from those experiences that you still carry with you today?
yeah. I believe that my self-confidence to do what I do, that I am capable of preparing myself and achieving all the results, because I always, when I came back to Brazil, I got with the mission duly completed. What was I have aligned with my manager. So I
Yeah.
believe that all the trips learned a little bit about all of that, and of course about the cultures. Since I really like about that, because it's different to work from the offset, to work from São Paulo, and really go deep into that culture, to know how those people do what they do on a daily basis, because it's really different from country to country. And although we are in Latam, however, to focus on that and to give the support, even when we are talking about an operational level or C level. So it was really important, and I carry on with me until today to do my current activities.
Have you always been able to tune into people well, or is that a skill that you've continued to develop over your career?
It is something that I've been developing over my career. I believe in the beginning of my career, I was a little ashamed about that, to speak up in public or to go
Yeah.
through this type of trainings, but I really would like to do. So I also request about that to my boss to put me in these opportunities to challenge me about that, because it was something that I would like to have and improve on myself. So I explored this as many as I could, so I could evolve, and I still evolving right now and the current days. So that's how it worked.
Yeah. Do you feel like so you probably have friends from law school who went into this area or they went into that area and it was really the wrong thing for them. How lucky do you feel that the area you went into, I mean, you can just tell just talking to you that you're so passionate about it. It feels like you probably found the right area. How lucky do you feel about that? And what other things were you considering doing before you went into compliance?
Yeah, sure. Well, I feel totally lucky because since the beginning of my career, I found something that I really like to do, that I really care, and that something that I believe that changed not only the company that I work for, but it's changed the world. If we teach that the company uh, do the right thing, and also the employees to be better persons on a daily basis, I really think that they can change the world. So I believe that it's I can imagine and I can express how lucky I am doing about that. And I know that it's not common. Talking about my other friends from law school, it's really hard to do that. I
Mm-hmm.
have friends that most in the last year of law school hasn't find themselves in the right path or in the right career. Some of them give up after finishing law school or changing a lot what they have been doing. And I realize that it's very common in more than it should be probably, but it's really common that people changes a lot from professional or areas. So that's why I feel totally lucky about it.
Um, so tell me this. So I don't really, I mean, we know that, you know, you're in a high risk country, but what does that actually mean? Like, it's probably hard for us in America to appreciate what that actually means and how your job is different in a high risk country. What are some stories that you can point to that you think, you know, our average listener would just be amazed at? You know, is it a level of corruption? Is it a pervasiveness of bribes? Or like, what are what's some of the mud, what's some of the dirt that you have to deal with that maybe you don't think would be common in a low risk country?
Yeah, sure. I believe the key one is the corruption, because talking about Brazil, and I can tell you in details about that,
Yes.
Brazil is a very bureaucratic country. So we have to deal a lot with public officials to get licenses, authorizations. So this is really common in Brazil. And due to this bureaucracy, we have some open fields that people, for example, as you say, pay any kind of bribe. And these public officials sometimes they asks about it. And the punishment in Brazil is also too long. So it takes a long time to have the due process of law to punish that public official. So it's really hard about it. So although Brazil has changing in that sense, this is a still difficult thing that we have. So we need to change our people. I need to teach, I need to state that my to my employees that they shall do the right thing, every day. I have to remind it on a daily basis. We have to have trainings for risk areas. We have to online trainings or remindings and adapt all of this stuff to get these people doing the right thing. So this is how we work, and this is really common. And Brazil is also a large country, so
Right. How many
we
people
have
are in Brazil? What's the population?
2,000 millions.
Got it.
So it's a huge one, and we have operations in very small cities.
Right.
So which increases even more the difficult to have any license. So this type of corruption. So we need to face and well.
Yeah. So how do you go into that small city where this level of corruption, doing bribes is just a way of life? How do you persuade them to do the right thing?
Yeah, we need to, since the beginning, state that we are the correct company and teach them on how to break the chain.
But why would they want to do that? Why would they? I'm just playing devil's advocate with you. Why, if they've been doing it forever and that's just the way of life, how do you convince them to stop doing it? Is it through threats that if you do it, you get fired? Is it through, hey, just trying to appeal to their conscience and saying, this is a wrong behavior, we can't do that because there's negative implications for it? What difficulties have you had in persuading folks, and what way do you typically go about it?
Yeah, sure. It's a really tough thing to do, but we have some strategy to apply in this case. First one, we have to do these policies in place, stating that this is not acceptable. Mm-hmm. After that, we have to train that. So to explain why is wrong and why we are probably changing the way of life when a compliance department is new, for example. Yeah. And third, we need to state and tell them to make clear that we are there to support them, because it's too easy to tell him or her, do not do that, right? Because it's wrong. However, these people are facing issues, are facing problems. They are they need to make the business go on. So we need to find ways to tell them this is the options that we have. So this is what we focus. You won't have, this is what I say, you won't pay this bribe. However, this is the way. We have these opportunities to address this type of risk. Right. Even in the last option, we need to go to court to have this license as soon as possible. You need. So I give opportunities to people to do the right thing and make them to reflect that walking in compliance is also possible. So, and this is a way to break the chain, because once we do the right thing with this public official, they probably will not ask to do this anymore, and it will go on the right course of the bureaucracy and not delaying anything and not challenging and not trying to do the wrong thing.
So when you've had a lot of really interesting experiences, you've moved to several different cool opportunities, and you've worked with many international organizations. When you're working with counterparts in other countries, what do they seem to get wrong about the high-risk environment that you're in? What misconceptions do they have about what will work and what won't work? And what learnings do you have to bring to bear for them, or bring to the table for them to understand, to help them be more effective as a team in your jurisdiction?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, we need to reinforce the company values and explain to them that it's not acceptable anymore, that's totally off the table, and also to get to understand their perspective, because people sometimes do what they do because they was all life cheating that way.
Right.
And speak up or an ethics line is a great example. here in Brazil, I can say that we are teached to not to look for other people, not to take care of people's lives. So when I say to you, oh, you should make a complaint if you see your friend suffering from moral harassment,
Mm-hmm.
it's a kind of a situation that people, it's not my business. I should not involve myself in that. So people are created and raised in this type of environment. So the same applies when we are talking about the employees, the vendors, the partners. We need to try to understand what are the characteristics that they were raised and what and why they believe that's something is normal. For example, to pay bribes or to get to pay a little coffee, or that if it is a small amount, it's totally acceptable. So we need to build a better mindset about that and explain the environment that we are in, that the world changed.
Do you get a lot of pushback when you're trying to do that? Do you get a lot of resistance from people as you're trying to push this or try to persuade them? Or do you feel like, I'm sure it's all over the place. I'm sure sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no, but just in general, what kind of resistance do you get as you try to instill these new values really into the minds of these people that you're entrusted with?
Yeah, I don't feel so resistance. I feel more challenge about that because once I put myself as a almost a business partner of compliance to advise them on a daily basis to take better decisions, they also challenge me a lot. So what will I do if the operations must be stopped or anything, or if I will have any problem? How compliance will solve this problem? They are willing to do. When I talk about compliance, everybody is willing to do. I believe that it's the exceptions that are resistance of that. But I really need to have the support because if I don't, they probably will be doing the wrong thing or anything related, but it's not so resistance.
So when, you're somebody who has, given the experience that you've had, you seem to be a very opportunistic person. You see a new opportunity, or you see a new, a new role that you can come in and do something more and stretch yourself. What sort of things are you looking for in your future roles? And if you look back on your previous roles, what are the ones that you felt really gave you a skill set that you can continue to leverage?
Yeah, sure. Well, I will start with the first one. Well, I really like to deploy compliance departments because seeing something being built and to get these numbers to present to board, to present to the company as itself, to have a department being built, it's really great for me to present all of these indicators and showing them that compliance is cool, that compliance works, and the importance of compliance. So I see myself in the future remaining in compliance risk area in a position of head of department and building teams every time more to building people to do the right thing and supporting me as a head of compliance more and more, even possible in a region or living abroad, for example, if I had the opportunity. But I still remaining in this type of field. And looking backwards, I say that all of the experience that I got in the other companies helped me to be at the right place where I am right now, because I state that I'm really confident. I'm really like where I am right now and what I achieved. It was totally different opportunities. I started in a type of compliance, and now I am in a different one. I have opportunity also to work in a Brazilian company, to work in a monitorship. So
Mm.
all of this contributed to build myself and on the expertise. And now I'm moving more to support people on my team. So I believe that it was the greatest experience that supported to me right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if you could change anything in the world to make the world better, what would that be?
Yeah, hunger. I
Hunger.
believe that yeah, it shall not exist people, well, starving in this world. This is something that I usually say that affects me too much. And if I could change anything, it would be that, because the minimum to have in life is food, so people can go through their dreams on a daily basis and, well, achieve their goals and be a better person every day, and everybody help everybody. So if I could stop this, it would be one dream.
Yeah, it is crazy that hunger is still an issue and we have iPhones and we have all these other things. It's like, how do we eradicate it? How do we fix it? It's insane. It happens in our country. It happens in your country. It happens everywhere. There's all this wealth and there's all this prosperity, and yet there are still people who are going to sleep hungry every night. It's really crazy.
Yeah, in this pandemic that we've been facing through the latest
Yeah.
2 years,
Isn't that
raised this
isn't
a
that
lot.
crazy? It's been 2 years. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I
You know?
that yeah, that's totally crazy. I went home to work from home for 15 days, and
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
2 years working from home till now, and that's totally crazy. I couldn't imagine in my life that this would be possible. That sometime in my life I would pass so time at home.
I know. It's really crazy. I was thinking about that today. I was realizing like it's almost 2 years, and it's like this new thing. It's just what's normal now. It's just it's a really mind-boggling it's a mind-boggling situation. So let's go back in time, and what advice do you wish you had when you were younger? What things have you learned that you wish you could go back in time and tell a young Will, so that Will could be even further down the road, or put those lessons into practice sooner?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I believe that every child or every teenager shall be what they are willing to do, they need to achieve, because it's very hard to work in a profession that you don't like. So everybody should choose something that they really like, they are really up to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not common that the family, that friends, because they usually want people to have the most famous,
Mm-hmm.
professionals. But people should be encouraged to do what they really like, even are not this famous one, because we have people very talented in arts, for example. But I can say about Brazil, this is not something that it really encourage kids to do. So right now, so we need to encourage people to do and to, well, to seek do their dreams since they can, and, well, to be evolve about that.
I love that. How do we make the world a more ethical place? How do we make our workplaces better across the whole board? Where does that start?
Well, I believe the answer is with us. I try to start with me, because I am not different from anyone. I faces difficult and ethical dilemmas on a daily basis as well.
Yeah.
Everyone has the opportunity to park in a place reserved for disability, so it's our choice to park or not.
Well, you
So
can
I
just kind of
try,
limp a little. If you get out, you just limp a little, and then no one will ask you. I'm kidding. I'm
yeah.
kidding. You're right, though. I mean, we're all faced with these ethical dilemmas. We all come in contact with these things, and it's just a bunch of little decisions that we make that stack up across the whole country or across our community that end up pushing us one way or another.
Yeah, so we need to focus on ourselves and be the example. That's why I told every day to the leadership of my company, I tell them, you should be the example to your team because you will be reflected on them. So I try to do the same. I try to be the example for my family, for my friends, in the company and everywhere. Because when I do the right thing, the people look at, people observe it. Why that people, that person are doing what they do if they had the opportunity to do wrong. And people got surprised about that.
Right.
So I believe that it's the beginning of the process. So we only can change the other if we change ourselves first.
I love that. I mean, it is so true. If you want to change somebody else, you have to probably change yourself first because there's a lot of things you're probably doing that you're not even noticing. And until we're perfect, that's always the place to start. So last piece of advice, every CEO in the world loves the ethics experts. They all listen to this podcast. So this is your chance to give them a message that can help change the world. What would you tell them? What do they all need to know from Will's mouth to their ears?
Yeah, sure. Well, believe in compliance, invest in them, and give the opportunity because compliance raises several benefits to your company, and compliance, a serious compliance office invests on people, and people will get you results to your company. If you have people in your company, in your place, living in a great work environment without fear of retaliation, without moral or sexual harassment,
Yeah.
will you have everybody a great place to work, a great result, and a better company for everybody.
Well, I love it. Thank you so much for coming on. You can find Will on LinkedIn. Will, I love your work. I love your passion, how passionate you are about our industry, and thank you so much for being so generous with your time and with your experience.
Thank you.
Till next time.